Very pleased to be joined by our special guest today, Paul Watson, who needs very little introduction, obviously, but just for those who haven't followed his career as closely as perhaps some others have, he's a co-founder of Greenpeace in Vancouver, and then started the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society as a direct action organization with regards to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing and the general protection of the oceans. And certainly, if you haven't been following Paul and Sea Shepherd, it's been really impressive how the organization has been widely much more respected and cooperated with by Interpol in terms of illegal fishing notices. The U.S. Navy certainly, acknowledges them and in a positive way. And Sea Shepherd has partnered with governments in Central America and Africa, and Paul could tell us more about that, to help them combat illegal fishing. So it's become a very, very legitimate and worthwhile partner in the fight to preserve our oceans and the fisheries in our oceans. And of course, those of you locally here know that Sea Shepherd and Alexander Morton have been very active in the fight to get rid of the open pen fish farms up in the Broughton Archipelago with the ship, the Bob Barker, has been up there. So without further ado, I'll ask Curtis to please have Paul join us on the screen as the presenter. There he is. Hi, Paul.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just ask you to tell your story as you want to tell it to us, and I'm sure you've got a million of them. And particularly, and it's something that I was mentioning earlier, was like just in the news last week, you had HMCS Calgary pictured in the Persian Gulf, and that huge seizure of heroin, and and we all love our sailors, but I think, why isn't our Navy out protecting the ocean's fisheries? I mean, maybe what they're doing in the Persian Gulf is good, maybe it isn't, but I mean, so clearly they're under international mandates to do things, and so why, so that question pops to mind. But anyway, so over to you, please, Paul.
Well, aside from the interception of drugs, one of the other great crimes on the planet is the illegal trade in wildlife. And when it comes to fishing, about 40% of the fish taken from the sea has been caught illegally. And I established Sea Shepherd as an anti-poaching organization, which is now a global movement. And right at the moment, we have 12 ships, and they're working in cooperation with numerous governments around the world, in Africa and Latin America, in the Mediterranean. And what we do is intercept illegal operations and shut them down. So Sea Shepherd is not a protest organization. We're an interventionist, an anti-poaching group. And just last month, we boarded and arrested and seized 6 poaching vessels in the waters of Sierra Leone. Now, what you're having there is that Asian and European fishing fleets are plundering Africa's waters, and that's causing not just a diminishment in fish populations, but it's also wreaking havoc with many African communities and driving more and more people into poverty. I mean, one of the reasons you have pirates in Somalia and an emerging piracy in the Gulf of Guinea is the fact that these are impoverished fishermen who have been driven through desperation to become pirates, because the real pirates have plundered their waters. So that's what Sea Shepherd is doing right now. And I think quite effectively, so that we're attracting a lot of attention. The United States Navy has actually a course on what we do at the U.S. Naval War College. And we've been approached by more and more governments to get involved. Now, what that means is that we provide the ships and the resources and the volunteers, and they provide the authority. And so we take their enforcement people out to do the actual arrests. And that's what we do inside the national waters of various nations. Outside the 200-mile limit, then we operate under the guidance of the United Nations World Charter for Nature, which allows for non-government organizations and individuals to intervene to uphold international conservation law. Now, I know you mentioned that we're becoming more legitimate. I think we've always been legitimate. When we don't protest, we don't break laws, we uphold laws. Of course, there's a perception that we break laws, but then again, we have a lot of very, very powerful enemies. And one of the most absurd things is that, we are working actually in partnership with Interpol, but I'm actually on the Interpol red notice list because Japan, which is a very powerful nation, has put me on that list. Now, the Interpol red notice was designed to stop serial killers, war criminals, major drug traffickers. And I'm the only person on the history of that list to be put on there for trespassing or conspiracy to trespass. But again, Japan has the power to do that. And why do they do that? Because we interfered against their illegal operations in the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary, cost them over $150 million, shut down their operations and saved 6,500 whales in the process. And that made them quite angry. I was actually on the list by Costa Rica because in 2002, I stopped a shark finning operation in Guatemala at the request of the Guatemalan government. And it was a Costa Rican boat, and Costa Rica charged me at the time in 2002 with the fishermen complaints that I tried to kill them. So I was actually charged with 8 counts of attempted homicide. But we went into court, and we were making a film at the time with Rob Stewart called Shark Water, and we showed that footage in court, and it showed very clearly that nobody was trying to kill anybody, and the charges were dismissed. A week later, I was charged again, this time with 8 counts of assault. But once again, we went into court, showed the film, and once again, the charges were dismissed, and I was given clearance to leave Costa Rica, and didn't hear anything about it for about 10 years until when I arrived in Germany, I was arrested on an extradition request by Costa Rica. This time they had changed the charge to shipwreck endangerment, which nobody really even knew what it was. But 2 years ago, that charge was dismissed, and it was dismissed because of a change of government in Costa Rica, which really shows you that it was political and not judicial. You can't just dismiss a charge because of a change in government unless it was politically motivated. So I'm proud to say that after 42 years of operations, we've never been convicted of a felony. We've never been lost any lawsuits against us by some very powerful companies, but we have achieved a lot in shutting down hundreds and hundreds of illegal operations around the world.
That's great. Thank you, Paul. And yeah, and permit me to clarify my my remarks. I guess I was thinking that in the perception of people, you had gone from sort of that pirate approach to how people think in terms of when governments recognize you, that makes you more or less legitimate, which isn't necessarily the case. And so, yeah, certainly, in my eyes and the eyes of anybody else, who looks at what you guys have done, it's been very legitimate from day one.